Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to this live stream that I will be discussing with you about many subjects, including very important developments from today. It was initially meant to be a live stream Q&A, but I'm going to add some information initially as well. Firstly, before we begin, is everyone hearing me properly? Can someone just confirm? Yes, perfect. Lovely. Thank you so much. Excellent. So, I got many questions that I will answer later on. Some of you sent them to me previously. And then obviously, I'll open up the questions regarding the video today. So I just want to talk about one subject. I'll try and be as brief as possible. It's regarding Hamas's response to the proposal that that happened in Paris from Qatar, Egypt, the US, and Israel. Now, the Qatari foreign minister, he said that the response was positive. Obviously, it was proposed last week, and it's been a week now. Clearly, Hamas have reviewed everything, and they had notes, and that also means that they considered it to be positive to a certain extent with regards to, what's been proposed in Paris. However, they obviously had their comments on it because typically, initially these proposals will be more leaning towards Israel. But with multiple proposals failing previously, they tried to reach something that will be more accepted by both parties. So I personally listened to the Qatari foreign minister, who only said it was positive and optimistic. Blinken's only concerned about the Israeli hostages. He's saying that, we need to reach a solution by firstly solving the crisis of the hostages. It's as if Israel is speaking when you talk about Blinken. The White House said that they will study Hamas's response carefully. And we've heard mainly people being more free about the details were the Hamas leaders and the PIJ leaders, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And I'll start off with Muhammad al-Hindi. He's the Deputy Secretary General of the PIJ. He spoke with Al Jazeera. He said a couple of important things, him and alongside a couple of leaders from Hamas. He said that Paris, initially, the proposals in Paris were due to Israeli problems, not the Palestinian, because Hamas told them from the beginning, if you want to reach a ceasefire, we can reach a ceasefire, but you need to stop your aggression, get out of Gaza, and then we'll start talking about a deal, okay? He said that they want an exit, obviously, but that they started, obviously, to study this response that happened in Paris, the proposal, and that they're sticking to their principles, the core general principles. Constant tahdi'ah, he's saying, constant ceasefire. Now, this is something new in the tone of the resistance, especially coming from the PIJ, by the way, because they're very, strict with their positions. The PIJ, like Hamas, really. But this could be a new term being used to kind of try and reach something more acceptable to the Israelis and Americans to agree on. Okay, constant tahdi'ah, constant ceasefire, rather than completely stopping the war. Clearly, everything we're talking about, by the way, is temporary, and I'm going to speak about that in a second. So if anyone's expecting a final solution, as in not a complete solution to the Palestinian problem, or solving the case completely, that's not going to happen anytime soon. Ending the aggression after this constant ceasefire, entering the aid, lifting the siege, rebuilding Gaza. So he said that they stuck to the same principles with slight modifications. He said that Netanyahu speaking about victory, everyone knows that he's speaking to his crowd. I've been always saying that as well. Netanyahu speaks to his right-wing extreme crowd. Him and Ben Gvir and Smotrich, these people are not talking to the world. They think that they're above the world, Israel. Everyone criticizing them is anti-Semitic. And they speak to their crowd to try and please them. And what pushed the US is the fact that there's tension. So obviously, what's pushing Israel is their losses in Gaza. Primarily, they spoke a lot about the Palestinian perseverance, the Palestinian steadfastness when it comes to the people, and the strength of the Palestinian resistance. Many things that we also constantly speak about. And America, according to him, they just don't want an escalation in the region. No one is worried about the Palestinian people. They're worried about the Israeli hostages, prisoners of war, and they're worried about their own interests. Israel didn't respond yet. And he also highlighted about how many of Israel's responses are contradicting. That's something we spoke about constantly from the beginning of this war with Gallant and Netanyahu. That later became evident that it's also Gallant and Gantz and Netanyahu, everyone, and the IDF leadership. Everyone says something else, as if multiple people are representing Israel and don't have a united stance. And this is what's causing, by the way, a major problem, before I continue, in reaching a solution. So we've had a report in Israeli media that many Arab leaders who are interested in de-escalating, they are speaking to Benny Gantz. They're not speaking to Benjamin Netanyahu, because Benjamin Netanyahu just cannot speak with him. So that's a problem. That's a problem because he's the prime minister, Netanyahu. And if he's giving the official stance of Israel, and you have other strong leaders that are holding the cabinet together, then where are we? And this is one of the main things that we had such a delay when it comes to the ceasefire. Another thing he mentioned is that if Israel knew where the prisoners were, they would have bombed all of them, right? Israel already killed over 70 Israelis in Gaza. According to him, if they knew exactly where everyone is, they would have killed all of them so that they don't have to pay any price. And Israel's proven this so many times by the implementation of the Hannibal Directive during this war, and they still do. And according to him, obviously, again, he said that's Al-Hindi, again, the PIJ Deputy Secretary General. He said, whereas Israel is looking to kill their own prisoners, we're protecting them, treating them positively, providing them with medicine, and this is in accordance with our religious teachings. I mean, we spoke about the images previously, the hostages, the prisoners that were released, how well they spoke about Hamas and the Palestinian resistance, the smiling, the handshakes, everything that the media tried to spin and twist. Most of the mainstream media, whether it's in Israel or in the West. But he confirmed that they're treating them well, and it's Israel who's trying to get to them and kill them. They already killed so many. We spoke about them. If you're interested, you can see some of my previous videos. I spoke about several cases about Israel killing its own soldiers and civilians inside of Gaza. Another statement we had about this response was from Ghazi Hamad. Ghazi Hamad is a Hamas official from the political bureau, obviously. He said that the many details of the Paris proposal were shady and unclear, and that Hamas and the resistance are representing the position of the people. What they're interested in is the withdrawal of Israel, aid to all of Gaza, including the north, rebuilding, and they submitted a complete response. He also confirmed that Israel didn't respond yet to Hamas's response, and that they have different opinions. Again, the leaders, they're reiterating, the Palestinian leaders, how much Israel's conflicts, inner conflicts, and different opinions, they affect reaching a ceasefire deal. Because it's a major problem. Think about it, when you have the military not agreeing with the government, when Netanyahu not agreeing with his cabinet, Netanyahu not even agreeing with his party, the Likud party, you can't reach a deal, and that was one of the main things that's causing the delay. On the other hand, Netanyahu posted a short statement after Hamas sent their response saying, we are on the way to complete victory. It's like as if he's living on Mars or another planet, really, this guy. Complete victory, they're going to, he said. And Ghazi Hamad was very open about Iran's support to the Palestinian resistance. He said that they're acting as if they're revealing secrets about our relation with Iran. And we are clear Iran supports us with money, weapons, militarily, and politically. He was very clear on that. And Hamas have been clear on that ever since day one. He also reiterated, again, for anyone joining me now, it's Ghazi Hamad, one of the political bureau members of Hamas. He also said that Israel hasn't and will not accomplish anything in this war. And they look at their destruction in Khan Yunis, and they haven't accomplished anything. They're still active all across Gaza. And one other interesting thing here, which shows leniency when it comes to the resistance. He was asked about whether Hamas is still looking to release all Palestinian prisoners. He said, God willing, we will. We are looking to, but then again, that's like vague. But he said we are looking to release as many as possible. And with regards to the ceasefire itself, because it's a problematic situation, we're looking for international guarantees about anyone who has interest in this. He mentioned names like Qatar, Turkey, Egypt, and the United Nations. And he also reiterated how Israel never respects agreements, how they imprisoned many people who were released during the Gilad Shalit, after the Gilad Shalit swap in 2011, without any legal basis, administrative detention. If you don't know, read up about administrative detention in Israel. It's awful. They'll imprison you without anything. And no one will know where you are. That's when it comes to Ghazi Hamad. Muhammad Nazal, who's another Hamas figure, he also said that they had an initial acceptance of this Paris Agreement, and he said that this is something that we can build upon. This is something that we can build upon, but there were multiple things that we need to discuss, such as the withdrawal. Is it before or after the negotiations? The aid, when will it enter? How many quantities? Will it include the north as well? Obviously the prisoners. And he also reiterated that what was before the 7th of October is not what is after the 7th of October. No one can ignore Hamas. No one can put them away from the political scene. No one is able to get rid of the Hamas and the Palestinian resistance in Gaza. He also gave an example about Al-Qassam brigades killing a major in North Gaza just today, and that the resistance relies on its arms and is in an open battle with the occupation, and that the word is for power on the ground. These were the main things that they highlighted. And now the ball is in Israel's court. When it comes to Israel, now I'm going to be speaking without quoting anyone. With regards to Israel, obviously we've seen the split and the level of disagreements when it comes to reaching a ceasefire, not reaching a ceasefire, what's gonna happen. Gantz threatening that he's gonna leave the government if they won't sign the ceasefire agreement immediately, if Netanyahu delays it for his own political purposes. Ben Gvir, on the other hand, who's a core figure in the Israeli coalition, government coalition, saying that I will leave the government if we stop this war. Similar threats from Bezalel Smotrich. The question is, will they reach a deal or not? And again, the one thing that I wanted to elaborate on this whole thing is, even if we reach a deal, even if they reach an agreement, this will not be the end unless like something massive happens in Israel, because clearly they're relying on the defeat of the Palestinian people. They've proven from day one they will not be defeated, neither the Palestinian people nor the resistance. They're showing steadfastness, they're showing strength, resilience, and they know how deeply rooted the hatred and maliciousness Zionist Israel has ever been since its establishment. But the key thing here is, will something change in Israel? Will Netanyahu get rid of the right wing and go with less right-wing politicians in Israel and agree to it? And obviously the days will come and will show, but it doesn't look like it's going to end even with this temporary ceasefire, because Israel is clearly looking for any gaps or any excuses to try and breach the ceasefire, and they have done so repeatedly with every war they had in Gaza. And obviously none of these wars were as intense as this war, but we saw it from 2008, 2012, 2014 to this day. Really, I mean, they even breached the temporary ceasefire. They killed people still trying to reach the north, although they agreed that they will allow them to. But you can't trust Israel. You cannot trust Israel politically, officially, and any of their words. They always break their words, which means that it will most likely be an ongoing thing, even after the ceasefire is agreed upon, or if it ends as well. I'll open the... Thank you very much for everyone supporting and contributing. If anyone wants to make donations directly, please donate directly to parties, not for me. If anything you support for me, you're supporting this channel, you're supporting my work, you're supporting the alternative to the lies of mainstream media. But direct donations, if you want to donate anything to Gaza particularly, look for trustworthy, registered, and transparent charity. Anything you support on this channel or memberships or on my website, they support my work that I bring to you on this channel and my other work as well. Let's start off with the questions. You're welcome, everyone, and I'm sorry if I can't see, obviously, all of the messages. Let me start with the messages that I received earlier on, and then I can go to your messages. If you wouldn't mind keeping it like one message per one question per one, if possible, really, unless you have something really important. Thank you very much, Anon. Just call me Anon. Where'd you buy that hoodie? That hoodie, I got it as a gift from Egypt. Look, it even has a watermelon here. Apparently they ran out of them. This was the last one. Okay. Let me start off with the questions. So, Ahmad Khamis, he asked, how can viewers get in touch with Gazan citizens, journalists, activists in Gaza and the West Bank, and people from Gaza? We might need mediators like you. Find a way, that would be great. So anyone who wants to contact anyone directly from Gaza, whether it's reporters or journalists, I would recommend you contact them directly through their official channels or socials online. That's the best way to contact them. I had another question. Many people asked about the lack of Arab support, and I'm going to try and kind of... Lisa, thank you so much. That's very kind and generous of you. I'm going to try and answer that in the kind of very briefly, because we spoke about the Arab countries previously. And what people need to understand is, number one, being Arab or being Palestinian doesn't give you any sort of anything over anyone else, you know. Arab nations or Palestinian people or anyone, they're simply like other people. You have the good of them, you have the bad. And the problem with the Arab nations is that many of the Arab countries were already established, agreeing to the establishment of Israel, really. Now, some people might say, what's restricting them from taking any action? Why are they not vocal? Why are they this? Why are they not? Because some of them have literally an alliance with Israel and with America. They tied their strategic fate with the United States. To them, America controls everything. There is no alternative. And we need to listen to what the United States administration says when it comes to Israel and when it comes to anything else in the Middle East. Didn't you forget the Iraq war and how many Arab countries participated in attacking another Arab country? Judith, thank you very much. Didn't you forget that? How many of them they attacked Iraq with? So don't be surprised when it comes to the Palestinians. Press wonder why again any Arab country with monarchy is not really a Muslim rule. And he also spoke about the Muslim world instead of being a monarchy or kings, whereas the Khalifa. Would you shed some light on that? Yes, I mean, obviously, when you talk about the term Khalifa from a religious perspective, it differs than a political perspective. From a religious perspective, when God said, "Inni ja'ilun fil ardi Khalifa," I'm creating a Khalifa on earth. It's a successor, as a human successor. Now, some translated it to be as a confirmation that there was a species similar to human beings beforehand, and God made a successor to them. Because the angels responded, أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاء. Will you create in it who will corrupt in it and spill blood? وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. And we praise you and sanctify you. قَالَ إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. He said, I know what you do not know. So that's one side. The other side is political, obviously. The political term of successor is the successor of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And then that term was used to obviously describe the political leadership in the Muslim world. And in many cases, there were multiple khilafas around the Muslim world. Now, when it comes to the unification, I mean, you can have an argument about the possibility of unification through economics or through any other thing, but it doesn't really look like that's coming anytime soon in the Arab or Muslim world. You know, they're so divided. Shannon, thank you very much. They're so divided that we're so far off from that, really. And you know, even Arab states, they act like kings. It's not like they're republics. Do you know what I mean? Most Arab states are authoritarian. So expecting again anything from the Arab world, sorry, not the people, you know, everywhere, you know, the majority of the people are awake when it comes to many of these things. Some are obviously not. And also note that who's taking action? Who's taking action now? The people who are taking action are the people who are outside of the international law thing, what they call international law. Like when you talk about Hamas, for example, you know, the official world doesn't recognize them. Hezbollah in Lebanon, the official world doesn't recognize them. Ansarullah in Yemen, they're not official. They're not technically legit by the clique elite of politicians in the world. These are the people that are taking actions. Very small number of countries, obviously, like Iran, like other countries, you know, but generally, the other countries, if they want to do anything, they'll do it on the sly. They will hide it. They won't reveal it. Another question that I received was about them stopping the UNRWA. Yeah, they want to stop the UNRWA because it's a lifeline for the Palestinians. Yesterday they attacked, yesterday or today, they had actually bombed an UNRWA truck, aid truck going to the north of Gaza, and the whole world is sitting there. They're not doing anything. Imagine that. Attacking an aid truck, verified UNRWA aid truck. Really, I mean, seriously. Another important question that I got was from Jeff Ballas. He said, remember the suicide bombings in the 80s and the 90s? Do you know or suspect that they were actually carried out by the Mossad and blamed on the Palestinians to justify the oppression and draconian measures and create hatred among Israelis for Palestinians? They didn't need anything to justify their hatred against the Palestinian people. They've already indoctrinated hate and racism and supremacy ever since their establishment. They viewed the Palestinian people as a lesser people, and they've always been like that regardless of the type of government you had or people in power or their background or their ideologies. But with regards to suspecting that they were Mossad based, or look, some of them might have been, but although, you know, the suicide bombings, I mean, I remember them from a young age, right? People used to avoid buses. Like some people used to, we were on a bus once that, and we went down, and after a couple of stations, it exploded because someone exploded the bus. So remember, many Arabs died in these bombings. But then again, we understood why they were doing it. The people, and I'm not trying to kind of justify or not justify here, the reality that the Palestinian people live in, to let them reach a level where they'd go and so wear a suicide vest and explode themselves is a harsh reality, to say the least. I mean, most of these people, when you decided that I'm gonna go and I know I'm gonna die, then you've already said that I have no other purpose to live. And what people need to be asked is, what type of life were they living, right? So the human view towards this is to feel the pain of that person who, whatever he went through led him to do that. And you're seeing what people go through. They've been going through that on a regular basis. And the pain of that innocent person who lost his life or lost her life during that. It's one of those, unfortunately, very tough situations. But for Israel to use it as a pretext to do something else, they didn't need a pretext. They don't need a pretext to do anything. They'll create anything and do whatever they want, and they'll get away with it, like they did ever since their establishment. And obviously, what we're calling for, the implementation of equality, of universal human rights, freedoms, where people are valued and given rights equally. We'll get rid of these things. We'll get rid. You wouldn't have had Hamas or the Palestinian resistance if you had equality. Which leads me to another very interesting question that I received in Spanish, actually, but I was fortunate enough to translate it. Is just one second, let me get you that question. Is basically, is it possible to reach some sort of equality where the Palestinians will get their rights when it comes to and have the same rights as Israelis, and with that kind of solve the problem? And I always said, I mean, if you had equality, you wouldn't have problems, really. I mean, when it comes to the whole situation, if there was equality, you wouldn't have resistance. Resistance for what? So if you had equality, everyone was equal rights. Let's say the Palestinians were offered Israeli citizenship, and they told them, come, become full citizens and full rights, and the refugees can return, full rights. But the country's still called Israel. I mean, how many Palestinians would tell them, oh no, hold on a second, let's call it Palestine? Yeah, some people probably would, but if people have their rights, you can go through it democratically, right? And make any adjustments or amendments. But Israel doesn't want that. They've always fought that. They don't want equality. And they established their whole existence. Thank you for anyone supporting Joe, Afayan, anyone else. Sorry if I missed anyone, by the way. So if you had equality, you wouldn't have anything. As a matter of fact, it's easy. The solution is easy now, but they don't want to reach it. Israel politically never wanted to reach a solution, because reaching a solution, a human solution, would debunk their whole narrative of their supremacy. To them, they're supreme beings, and there are others who are subjects to them, subhuman people that are there to serve them. This is how Zionism was established and is established to this day. So all of a sudden, you want them to come and tell people, oh no, you're equal. It would end Zionism, which is what's actually needed: ending the supremacy, ending the oppression, ending the occupation, ending the sense of a higher being there over other people. And it's not just from Israel. As you can see, Francis, thank you so much. Francis Fitzgerald. As you can see, it's in the UK, in the UK politics, it's in American politics, it's in the EU. They're viewing the Palestinian life less than the Israeli life. It's not just the Israelis. It's not like You have a problem here. You have a supremacy problem. It still exists. They want to convince themselves that that's not the case by demonizing other people. But that stems from racism, from Islamophobia. These people have deep issues, deep problems against anyone, any other race or nation. It still exists to this day, and taking it out of the equation is delusional. It's not right. Yes, you might say there are political motives, there are financial motives. Red Gorilla, thank you very much. There are financial motives. Wardiya, thank you very much. I'm going to continue thanking everyone now. Thank all of you. You're so kind and generous. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. But there's a core problem. The core problem isn't just Israel, it's the people supporting them in quiet here in the West or in the Arab world and in the Muslim world as well. But obviously, when you talk about the main contributors to Israel, like the administration in the United States, you have people saying that the Palestinian children are not innocent. And this is, some of them are brave enough to even say it out loud. Imagine what are they saying behind closed doors? What are they saying? Imagine that. So that's a deep, deep problem that we need to get rid of. And how do you get rid of it? By constantly speaking about it, opposing it, showing its obviously falsehood. Because if people to this day think that one race is superior to another based on color or, you know, their religious background or whatever it is, well, if everyone is of the same color and religious or ideological background or whatever it is, do you think the problems will stop? Look at Israel. They're torn between them, right? They call themselves Zionists and Jews. They're torn. Look at all of the countries in the world, you know, people of the same background. You'll have differences because it's about human values, your actions, what you do, rather than what you identify as, you know. This whole thing, it's bizarre that it exists to this day, but we're fortunate enough that we have, fortunate and not fortunate at the same time, that we have this government in Israel so blatant with it that it shocks some people. I mean, when you speak with people in the West or in other countries about the daily life, for example, of Palestinians and the Class B citizen status, right? The fact that Israel is for Jews only, as they describe, they have a nation state law. They're shocked. Like when it comes to job opportunities, when it comes to political rights, when it comes to permits, housing, the discrimination is everywhere. And obviously, when you talk about the West Bank and Gaza, you're talking about an apartheid that's worse than South Africa. Don't diss South African apartheid by saying Israel is like South Africa. They're worse. And I'm not undermining anything, right? Seth, thank you very much. But Israel, look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing, and you'll just see, really. I'm just going to check if I had another question. I'll come to your questions. Scroll down quickly. Where is Abbas in all of this? Abbas is sitting in Ramallah, drinking coffee, maybe having shisha on the side. Yeah, maybe. What else? What else do we have? How much UK losses against Houthis? How many ships successfully targeted? They're constantly targeting the ships in the Red Sea, whether the ships that are going to Israel or the military ships. Obviously, they intercept some of these and they have targeted strikes. And yesterday we had a strike that on an area that was heavily populated, which is a dangerous escalation. So the Houthis, or Ansarullah, as they call themselves from Yemen, they are still attacking. Okay, let me come to the questions here. Let me scroll up for a bit and check if I missed something. And I'm sorry if I missed some of the questions or comments because I'm unable to reach all of them, but I'll start seeing any questions from the top here. And if anyone has a question, just post it now and I'd happily answer it. Gullyberg, any updates on Lebanon? Yes, there are a couple of updates on Lebanon. Number one, kept the attacks on Lebanon, and Hezbollah is still attacking Israel. And there are many talks about after a ceasefire in Gaza, if they are going to continue in Lebanon or not. So the latest reports we've had from Israel is we have two routes in Lebanon. Either we reach a diplomatic solution with them or we continue the war. Gallant previously said we're going to continue the war even after the ceasefire because we need to create a new reality in Lebanon. Don't forget, they have over 90,000 settlers from the northern parts of Israel that are close to the Lebanese borders evacuated. Many of these settlements were attacked directly. Some settlements lost half of their houses. Some of them lost 70% because Israeli soldiers were using them when the Israelis were evacuated. And they're struggling. The main problem with Lebanon is obviously the settlers. Israel has a problem with the Galilee. It's majority Palestinian Arab citizens of Israel. They have a problem with people who are evacuated from the south surrounding Gaza. Okay, what are you going to reach a deal with them? And we can still have this reality. Thank you. And anyone, Wardia, thank you so much. It's very kind of you. How can they live with such a reality on their border? They can't live with such a reality. So they need to convince their people that we've done something to make you be able to go back. Obviously, they tried through their barbaric genocide. They didn't succeed. They'll never succeed. They will never succeed against the Palestinian resistance nor the Lebanese resistance, because the Palestinian resistance and the Lebanese resistance, you're talking about people who are full of faith. They are fighting for something that is just, and to them, they're not afraid to die protecting that thing. And when it comes to Israel, you have people fleeing the war. Really, I mean, people who know they're thieves in comparison to people who know they're right. You can't beat people like that. And it doesn't matter what type of weapons or whatever it is they have. They'll fight you, you know, with empty hands, right? You know, Nasrallah made a speech once a long time ago. He said, if we did not have weapons, we'll fight you with our teeth. We'll come and bite you. So you're talking about this type of mentality. You can't beat mentality like that. Let's see any other questions that we have. So that's about Lebanon. So it's still tense, and we will obviously see. I think it'll quiet down, obviously, when the war stops in Gaza, which is like an ongoing ceasefire. But they would need to pack it in a really nice sellable package to the Israeli population. And guess what? Most Israelis are not buying groceries from the government. How old are you? I'm gonna turn 36 next month. If this conflict goes into the month of Ramadan, do you think a military coup in the Middle East could happen? Not necessarily, because Israel, they really like to attack during Ramadan, by the way. It's like their satanic death cult status is highlighted during Ramadan and Eid. Do you know how many attacks they had in Ramadan and Eid, Israel? So many times. It's like they use the holy month to attack. It's as if Satan is attacking. Seriously. But in terms of military coup or whatever, I don't think it's going to be related in the Arab or Muslim world. But they're trying to reach a deal before Ramadan. Not that Israel could care any one bit about, you know, Muslims celebrating in Ramadan. No, no, no. As a matter of fact, they like to kill them in Ramadan, and they've done so previously. But in terms of the Arab world, they're trying to reach a deal because they don't want it to extend back then. But again, we shouldn't be focusing on months. The urgency has been there from day one. From that moment where one drop of blood was spilled from an innocent person, that's enough. That's enough to take all of the action you can to stop this genocide and this barbarism. Let's see if we have any question. Other questions? I don't understand why the Rafah border is closed. How can Egypt deny that their reason is closed? Please explain, explain, explain. Muh. I think is that Muhammad? Muh. Okay. Because the border in Egypt has a three-way agreement. The agreement on the Rafah border, or what is called the Philadelphia Corridor in English, or Mihwar Salah ad-Din in Arabic. Israel obviously withdrew from Gaza in 2005 before Hamas was elected and took power. They had an agreement with the Palestinian Authority and with Egypt that anything that crosses in between Gaza and Rafah, it needs to be agreed upon between Israel, Egypt, and the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority that was there during 2005 is no longer there. They're in the West Bank. We have a new Palestinian Authority in the form of Hamas. So Israel is still asking Egypt to send them details of what they do, and they need to confirm everything. However, in terms of aid, Egypt doesn't have a problem getting the aid in, but Israel restricts the aid because of this three-way thing, and they might ask for further checks, and they might ask for this and that, and sometimes they'll bomb the aid like they did with the UNRWA truck a couple of today or yesterday. Sorry if I forgot. But this is how it is with Rafah. Obviously, that's not good enough from Egypt to say, okay, it's a three-way thing. Well, you have genocide, you know. Throw the deal in the bin that you had with Israel, and you open the border because you have a territory that's not Israel, officially at least, and put in whatever you want. So there is no excuse from Egypt, but they're using it because Egypt is always trying to use the diplomatic route when it comes to the solution. They don't want to be deemed as a side that is a contributor to the problem. And obviously, there are multiple reports that they have a hidden support, you know, for Palestine. Muhammad, thank you so much. But, you know, that's the situation in the Rafah border. Let me see any other questions. What's a one-state solution mean? The one-state solution means one-state solution across all of historical Palestine, between Jordan River to the sea. Many people, I wrote a book about this. I wasn't nowhere near the first one to write a book about it, but I wrote like more practical steps of how it could be implementable, dealing with certain things to do with politics and, you know, the refugees and core issues that need to be met to dismantle the regime of supremacy. But it's referred to as a solution between the Jordan River and the sea. And this, people need to remember this. This was why the Arabs and the Palestinians rejected a half state in 1948, because you'll hear many Israelis say that, oh, we offered you a state, but you didn't accept it. Offered them a state after they stole their lands unjustifiably, expelled people, unilaterally declared a state, and the Palestinians and the Arabs did not want a state based on religion and race. They wanted a one state where everyone can live in equally, as they were for thousands of years, whether it was the Ottomans or British or anyone or the Romans controlling it. Everyone lived there. The Zionist movement came and they wanted to sell us this Jewish state facade. Obviously, they use Judaism, even though Zionism is not Jewish in its roots. It was established by a person who was an atheist, and it was traditionally a Christian movement that began in the beginning of the 19th century. And the Ben Gurion, the first Israeli prime minister, he was an atheist. Netanyahu is an atheist. So they don't believe in God, but they believe in his promise. Oh, I don't believe in God, but I believe he promised me this, okay? So the one-state solution, the Palestinian movements, most of them were advocates for one state where everyone can live in equally. But Israel always resisted this. They rejected this because they wanted Jewish supremacy and domination, right, across of all of Palestine, and not just Palestine. Let's not forget they occupied Sinai. They have greater plans for a greater Israel between the Nile to the Euphrates. Why did they attack, why did they occupy Sinai for so long? They wouldn't have gone out unless it was Egypt taking back their lands. It's an expansionist colonial project. using Judaism as a facade front, capitalizing on Jewish trauma and catastrophe during World War II to justify their existence, although the people of Palestine had nothing to do with it. So the one state is river to the sea, equal rights. Let me see if we have any other questions. Is Jordan providing a land bridge? Apparently they are helping with the land bridge that's starting from the UAE, moving in Saudi Arabia to Haifa port in Israel, but we don't know many other details about it, its quantities, and it's clearly not enough because they're still being affected, and they had a coalition to protect Israel in the Red Sea. They wouldn't have done that if they have a good alternative. Yeah, it is raining. Sorry, there's the rain sound. Yeah, it is raining. It's a rainy night. What other questions do we have? What's going on with the Arab judge and the Arab members of the Knesset? There are still Arab members of the Knesset. Arab judge, I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Hostage deal question. Yes, this is what we spoke about from the beginning of this video. If you read it. Auntie K. Starrett, thank you so much. Mahmoud, what is the plan of Egypt to sell a city to the Emirates for 22 billion? Yeah, I've heard that report. I mean, it's not the first time that Egypt would sell a territory to a Gulf state to raise funds. You know, they had these islands that were disputed previously, and there was a big outrage in Egypt about it. Apparently, they will go through with this other deal. And obviously, that's, you know, an Egyptian thing if they do that. It could cause more, you know, criticism internally. It wouldn't be great for the Egyptian president, but we'll see how that goes. Some of you also asked, by the way, that the Egyptian forces are asking for money to let in aid in Gaza, and we've heard several reports that there are people who take bribes, whether when it comes to getting the aid in or letting people who have urgent needs get out of Gaza. And that's awful, to be fair. I've heard that from, there was a company, there was a charity, they didn't want to disclose their names because they didn't want to affect their operation. But they did say that they are getting about they're being asked to pay anything between $1,500 to $5,000. I've had reports from people directly saying that they're requesting them to pay around $12,000 to leave Gaza, to reach you know, to get like any necessities or whatever. But again, you know, there's still aid. There are still people, you know, Egypt still has many bases treating Palestinians. So is this something systematic, or are there corrupt people? Both ways, it's not good. I had another question. Dear Mahmoud, could you please explain how this war established the political dominance of Iran and by extension China? That was from Felix Benali. The clear downfall of Western hegemony in the world, how will all of this affect the Palestinian cause? Well, the Palestinian cause is a victim for Western hegemony, right? Israel is a settler colonial project. set up in the UK, exported to Palestine, and it's a key example of Western colonization in the Middle East, and like they colonized the whole world at the expense of the indigenous people. But we've been seeing a shift in power, obviously, in the past several decades now, but it has accelerated, in my opinion, after the war in Ukraine and when they saw that they cannot defeat Russia in that manner, and they resorted to silencing them, banning RT. People undermine that, banning the other side from talking. It's like, who do you think you are? You always bang on about democracy and, a freedom of thought, free speech. It's all garbage when it comes to things that they don't like, and they're doing the same with anyone supporting Palestine, at least on the mainstream media. But what happened in Gaza will accelerate it, and if there are other powers that have support and more openly support the Palestinian cause, it can cause problems, more problems. And I mean, we're seeing the end of the US empire and the hegemony. We're seeing the end of it anyway. But as with any ending, it doesn't just like happen in a day. Like I said, if they reach a ceasefire deal, for example, now, it's not going to be the end. There's going to be more problems coming up. It's going to be an ongoing thing until the root cause of the problem is solved. Inequality, in short, inequality that leads to oppression, that leads to genocide, dehumanization of other people. You need to get rid of that. Do we have any other questions from you here? Out of interest, what should Israel do now? They were wrong to colonize, but should they now just leave and give up the state? How do you see this being resolved? That's the thing, it's so simple. No one has to pack up and leave, okay? Unless you had certain locations that you obviously took by force and kicked people out, which is in many cases, obviously. But again, that can be arranged, right? So the core thing, right, if we want to reach a one-state solution, is the refugees. Israel would argue, okay, where are you going to bring 7 million refugees? Well, the whole Palestinian, historical Palestinian lands, they'll fit at least 3 million easily. I mean, that's just an excuse. And they know that if they give these people their rights, they would have political rights and they would want to change the shape of the country, change the name, the state, whatever it is, right? But if there's a will to reach an agreement, it can be met in so many ways. Like, let's say, for example, Israel says today, all right, no problem. Palestinians, you have an option here. You can become Israeli citizens with full rights all across of Palestine. We'll reach a solution. We'll do a referendum on the name or whatever it is, but we need guarantees that people, for example, who live in their places, they won't be forced out, but the refugees will receive other location. But again, you can't speak on behalf of refugees. You need to have referendums or whatever, but you can have an alternative option for them, including compensation. All of this is possible, but they don't want it and they don't want it out of supremacy, out of racism, out of believing that they're entitled to something that others are not. And if you believe you're entitled and you're the enlightened one and you're the human and the others are subjects or others or whatever it is you want to call them, they blatantly say, Palestinians are subhuman, then there's a problem. You need to dismantle this political idea. You need to dismantle Zionism as it's shown itself ever since it began. An idea that's based on racial, ethnic, religious supremacy. That's it, done. Those days are over. This should be done, a talk of the past. We're not living in the Middle Ages anymore. And to have any functioning, proper state, you need to have equality with people. That's basically what the Palestinian people have been asking for. But they obviously don't want it because they think they're entitled to everything. Let me see if any other questions. If you have any, just write them down. I'm just scrolling through anything that I could have potentially missed. Wal Raida, what is your opinion on Arab countries' position on all of this? Very, very poor, extremely poor. I mean, it's evident. I think many people are surprised. They're like, why are the Arabs not doing anything? They haven't been doing most Arab countries, they haven't done much anyway. Do you know what I mean? And how did Israel manage to come to a stage where it can do such atrocities? It's by the enablement of the people surrounding it and by the enablement of some Palestinians too, supporting them, you know, coordinating with what they do against the Palestinian people. Just scrolling through to see if they if you have any other questions. Mark Kelly, so what would a one-state solution be called if agreed upon? I always say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the name. What matters about the practical stuff. So equality, freedom, political freedom, equality of rights, justice. I know we're never gonna get like ultimate justice on this earth, all right? But we can work towards it. But and if you talk about politically, you start with the implementation of equality. And do you think people would care what the name would be? I don't think so. I mean, most people. I mean, we focus on the names now a lot because of like Israel denies the existence of and the history of the Palestinian people. They were like, they were never a Palestinian people. You never had a country. You're not people. You're Arabs who came here. And the same people who are saying these things are the same people who came from Belarus, from Russia, from Ukraine, from Hungary, from Germany, just over 70 years ago and changed their name, like Benjamin Netanyahu who was Benjamin Milikovsky, Moshe Sharet who was Shertok, right? Ben Gurion who was David Grun. They changed their names to make it more Jewish, right? To appeal and sell the people the concept of a Jewish state. So all of these things would be not important when it comes to the names if you reach a solution. Phoenix, will Netanyahu help rebuild what he's destroyed now? How will he compensate for the damages? They won't. We say that they should, right? They must be ordered to, but they won't. They will ask Arab states to do it. Like imagine, they were asking the UAE just a couple of months ago to pay for the Palestinian workers from the West Bank that Israel is banning entry to Israel. They were saying pay their fees. And it was reported that the leader of the UAE told Netanyahu, go get the money from Zelensky. And now they're suggesting a new wall that will be under the ground and over the ground between Gaza and Egypt. And they are asking a Gulf state to fund it. Imagine the entitlement and the stupidity of the other side who would even entertain such a talk. But there will be sides funding it. They're trying to cut the lifeline by attacking the UNRWA, by the way, which is so ridiculous, by the way. They haven't even... Firstly, I want to tell you something about the UNRWA, and not many people know that. The information that was released to the UNRWA representative in Israel about some employees participating, supposedly, in the 7th of October attack was leaked by an Israeli representative in the Foreign Office who's in charge of the relations with the UN. He had a confidential discussion with one of the leaders in the IDF. The IDF then released a statement anonymously to, I think it was Haaretz or another Israeli news source, telling them that we were surprised that this was leaked. And again, this just shows the level of distrust between them. They leak information against each other and use information for political purposes. So why did he leak it, this government official? Because he's tied with Netanyahu, and because Netanyahu wants to cut the lifeline of the Palestinians, like Ben Gvir and these radical mentalists from this satanic death cult. But the IDF, some parts of the IDF know that if you do that, it wouldn't necessarily be good for Israel. Not that the IDF is better than the government, right? They're all the same thing. But saying that, they have differences between them. And when they even said about the UN, the UNRWA, they haven't submitted the proof yet, by the way. So all of these countries, they stopped the funding without Israel showing the evidence. There was just a report. And based on that report, the UNRWA representative went back to the US, shared the information with the UN and the United States. The United States clearly coordinated, right? Leak this, we'll release it to these countries, they'll stop funding, we'll cut the life of Gaza to make the situation more miserable for the people. But this is their main aim, to depopulate Gaza, to commit an ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza, the new Nakba. They called it, an official in the government, Avi Dichter, he said a couple of months ago, this is the 2023 Nakba. This is the Nakba of Gaza. They want to expel them, resettle, take control. So how will they force them to go out? Cutting any sort of life on them. The UNRWA was based because of Israel's problem, because of Israel's relief, education, work for the Palestinian refugees. Over 7 million refugees in Gaza, the West Bank, parts of Jerusalem, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. So, do you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous, really. Amir D. Today I saw MME that Egypt built new walls between them and Gaza. Do you think they're really gonna act if the occupier overtakes the Philadelphia corridor? Thanks for your work, brother. Yeah, I heard that too. It might be an act from Egypt to show Israel that, look, we're taking some action. Because again, you need to understand how Egypt plays. They always play it diplomatically. They will want to show Israel that we're playing with you. We're doing, things to, like, for example, Israel asked them previously to install cameras. They said we installed cameras, but we won't share the information with you. It's for us. So Israel wasn't happy about that. So Israel wants the cameras, and they were like, look, we did cameras, but now, yeah, they can do a wall. It can be a whatever wall, because they had action against the tunnels back in 2013-14, I think. But obviously, there are still potentially tunnels active, and Israeli intelligence knows that. But obviously, to Egypt, they deny that, and they don't want to escalate things with Israel. So it might be a show thing. But obviously, if they attacked more in Rafah, and they said we want to have then they give them an ultimatum a few days ago. But they need to take lots of things into consideration. Okay. Let me see. Okay, no other questions. So, does anyone have any other questions before we end it, guys? John Klein. Yeah, the ceasefire deal. This is what I spoke about at the beginning of the live stream. If you rewind after we finish, you'll hear me talking about the response of the Palestinians. They officially submitted a response, and now the ball is in Israel's hands. Thank you, Rof Studio, everyone, for the kind comments. Habibi R313. Opinion on Iran and the militias they back, like Hezbollah of Lebanon, Al-Hashd al-Sha'bi of Iraq. Iran always likes to use proxies because using proxies gives them an extended reach without them having direct responsibility. And that doesn't mean that these movements lack any sort of independence or will, but the Iranian influence is obviously very heavy. It is less so in, it's less so in Gaza, because when with Hamas, and it's less so with Yemen than it is with Iraq and Lebanon. Because some of these groups literally have religious allegiance to the Wilayat al-Faqih, they call it in Iran, which takes a different dimension, really. If you say, I support this guy religiously and everything they say, it does take away some of the... It depends, but that's not to say that everything they do belongs to them or that everything they do is Iranian. Like, for example, Hamas, what they did on the 7th of October, no one knew. Neither did Iran, nor Hezbollah, nor anyone. No one knew that. And they get funded from Iran. They get funding, they get military support, they get political support. They get every support they need. And when they're criticized by people that, oh, look, you're an Iranian proxy, they'll tell them they support us, regardless. What do you want us to not ask for accept anything from Iran when the Arabs are not supporting us and betrayed us, and most of the Muslim world betrayed us? So, and Iran has been, Iran's position towards Palestine is clearly a core ideology when it comes to them, whether it's Hamas or it's anyone else. But yeah, I mean, obviously you can criticize some of the things they do, like when it comes to Syria or whatever. And that's natural to have like disagreements, and sometimes you can lead to fighting or whatever. They had problems with Hamas back then too. But when it comes to their position with Palestine, they have been consistent all throughout. And I think many people fail to view things from a strategic point of view. And many people fall into the small little nitty-gritty devilish details, right? But I think people need to understand that there are bigger interests and there are things you can agree on or disagree upon. When you talk about relations between governments or politics, similar to relations between people, are you agree on everything with your closest people to you? You're not. You'll have people, brothers or sisters fighting over stuff, let alone countries and big movements. Michael, 33, are Israeli Jews different genetically? When you talk about Israeli Jews now, you're talking about every Jewish person who has an Israeli identity. These people range from people who were there before the establishment of Israel, like many of the Orthodox Jews in Jerusalem, like the Shomronim, who were one of the most ancient Jewish tribes and groups of people in history, who believe, by the way, that the Mount Temple is in the West Bank and Har Gerizim, and they have more archaeological backing to support it. As a matter of fact, the ones who claim it's in Al-Aqsa, they don't have any evidence to support it. So these can be considered Israelis. The anti-Zionist Orthodox Jews are considered Israelis. Again, by identity, right? The Palestinian citizens of Israel are considered Israelis by ID. So when you say Israeli by nationality, anyone who holds an Israeli national identity. Genetically, the people who formed Israel, genetically, if you want to talk about genetics, the people who established Israel, their genetics goes back to Europe. Their genetics is from Germany, is from Poland, is from Ukraine, the previous Russian Empire, Belarus, these areas. These are the people who established Israel, genetically speaking. It wasn't enough because they wanted to have a hierarchy and superior demographics. So what they did is started reaching out to the Jews of the Arab countries. They actually participated, the Zionist gangs, in terrorist activities in Arab countries to scare the Jews off the Arab countries and bring them to Israel. When they came to Israel, they started giving them new names. They told them, you're not Arabs, you're Jews, because they created a Jewish ethnicity, right? Judaism is not an ethnicity. Judaism is a religion. That's why many religious Jews oppose this idea of a Jewish state, because Zionism created Jewish ethnicity. There is no such thing. It's like saying there's a Muslim ethnicity. What do you mean Muslim ethnicity? There is no Muslim ethnicity or Christian ethnicity. It's a religion. But they wanted to connect it with that. That's a malicious attempt as well. Why? So that anything that can be said about Israel, it will automatically be against the Jewish people. And we can see this evident. For example, if you read the definition of the IHRA, of anti-Semitism, you will see 7 sections out of 14, including Israel. Why is that? It's because they want to relate Israel as a country to Judaism as a religion. This is very, very malicious to do that, to connect a country with a religion. Countries don't have a religion. Countries don't stand up and pray. It's a land, it's stones, right? How can you have a religion for a state? You can say the majority religion of the people who live in the country is this or that, right? But that's from the genetic side. And there are many, by the way, many Israelis who are from these backgrounds who spoke about this, including people who are in the army, about how Israel abused the non-Ashkenazi Jews. The Ashkenazi Jews are the ones who created Israel. So when I spoke about the genetics, who came from Europe, which proves again this is a European settler colonial project. I mean, the Jews in the Arab world, they were fine for centuries. How comes all of a sudden you started to have problems when Israel was established? They supported terror against the Jews of Arab states to bring them to Israel and Judaize them in an ethnic way. So I hope that elaborate. Joe Public, was Haifa port bombed by the Houthis? It was targeted by the Iraqi resistance, unless something happened just now. It was actually the refinery, the oil refinery, chemical refinery, was attacked by the Iraqis. A couple of missiles. Some of them landed. Israel kept it under really harsh censorship. But the Houthis, I didn't hear them saying that they attacked the port directly. When it comes to the Red Sea, they're working in coordination. So what the Yemenis are doing, they're attacking the Israeli-linked ships in the Red Sea, and the Iraqi resistance is bombing the ports. They're launching rockets at the Asdod port and on Haifa as well. Sefi, can Hamas join the PA? Well, Hamas and the PIJ and the main resistance groups, armed resistance Palestinian movements, they have always asked for the PLO, which is the overseeing organization of most Palestinian political organizations, to be revised and include them, because that's the kind of internationally recognized body that represents Palestinians. Obviously, the PA doesn't want that, because the PA is always under pressure and control from Israel and its allies. That's why when you talk about, for example, reconciliation between the PA and Hamas, although we obviously want that, and for every armed struggle, you need to have political results. And Hamas, what they're doing is they're enforcing by their power. This is what they do. Whereas the PA is begging and is controlled by Israel when it comes to going in and out. Do you understand? So can they join them? They can, but you would need to have a core change in the approach of mostly the PA, not Hamas, because Hamas have proven they can work, they can do politics, not just resistance. They can participate in democracy. The PA, on the other hand, they've repeatedly shown that they cannot go out of Israeli control. They are under Israeli control. I mean, Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, he famously said once, if he does something, بطخوني, they'll shoot me. You know what I mean? And they do threaten them if leaving or not leaving, by the way. Let's see if we have any more questions. If Israel, Muhammad Saeed Abdel Hadi, if Israel knows you would accept a settlement, then why wouldn't they steal as much land as possible before having you agree and settle? This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to steal as much as possible and let you settle. I mean, the whole purpose of Netanyahu, according to Benjamin Netanyahu, his whole approach to this genocide was to put military pressure on Hamas so that they can reach a deal. It failed. Why did it fail? Because the Palestinian resistance is still humiliating them in every part of Gaza, and they haven't released one alive Israeli prisoner in Gaza by their military action. In terms of controlling the land in Gaza, they have no control anywhere. They're hardly able to create a new buffer zone. You know this explosion that happened 2 weeks ago where they admitted that 21 at least were killed? That happened in the buffer zone. That's outskirts. So if you're being attacked on the outskirts, and they admitted that some groups, organizations of Hamas and the Palestinian resistance are still active next to the borders of Israel. Imagine if they revealed the tunnel next to an Israeli base checkpoint next to the border, then they have tunnels leading to Israel. Do you understand? So they can't steal more land because of the strength of the Palestinian resistance. They've been preparing for this all of their life tirelessly. So they're losing. I mean, they have no other choice but to try and reach a deal, but they don't want that deal to be too humiliating. Sini Ambalam, what's the true number of Israeli casualties in Gaza alone? Well, they don't release them. They don't release them. But if you just take this one small statistic, Hamas destroyed wholly or partially 1,100 Israeli vehicles since this genocide began, apart from the hundreds on the 7th of October in the Gaza division that were killed or taken as hostages. That's regardless of the... So we're not counting the people who were attacked inside a building or whatever. Let's say the average of people in these vehicles are 4. You have bulldozers that have 1. You have tanks that have 4 to 6. Sorry, you have soldier carriers that have up to 17. And Nimr, for example, the Tiger. I mean, if you just say 1 in each vehicle, that's 1,000. The number is likely way higher. So if we want to be reasonably if you want to get a reasonable assumption, let's say 2 to 3,000 were killed in vehicles only. Add to that, I mean, so many videos that we saw them literally blowing places with Israeli soldiers in them, and the attacks on bases that Israel doesn't show, like launches of missiles and mortars on bases that have hundreds, if not thousands, of Israelis. The number is north of 5,000, to be really conservative. Very conservative. I mean, you're talking about tens of thousands of casualties. Will we really truly know the real number ever? Probably not. When it ends the resistance, or we can take what they released so far based on verified evidence and some statements to try and establish how much they killed, because it's their sources are authentic and believable, unlike Israel. They don't show them killing Hamas members. All we see is them killing civilians. That's their aim. We'd be able to understand more how many will, and also from the resistance. Rushi Kaushik, are you Muslim? Yes, I am Muslim, Alhamdulillah. Dura, what territory the Hamas would let Israel keep? In Gaza, they won't let them keep anything. They will expel them out of Gaza eventually. Hamas is looking to liberate all of Palestine. People need to understand that their aim is to liberate Palestine, not to expel the Jewish people, to liberate Palestine, like they say in their in many of their details, their charter. They want a free Palestine, free of Zionist oppressive occupation. So they won't stop with Gaza as well. Ido Uziel Am Yisrael Chai. We have Israelis as well with us. Let's see if we have more comments. Sorry, questions. Why doesn't Israel allow them back to their homes and lands? It's because they don't want to change the demographics. So with even when they started negotiating with the Palestinian Authority in the Oslo Accords in 1993, they told the Palestinian Authority, look, just don't talk about the refugees, right? They can come back to the West Bank and Gaza, but not to Israel, because if they come to Israel, we'll have a problem with the demographics. They already consider many of the Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel as a problem demographically. So they don't want to increase it. And that's a problem in itself. Like, I mean, even in my book, I argue about how what Israel deems as a demographic problem, if they accept refugees, could be a demographic blessing. Economically, when it comes to manufacturing, it comes so many things. Like, why does Israel accept workers from the West Bank to go and work in Israel, gives them permits? Very, very small numbers from Gaza previously. It's because they need labor. Like, over 50% of Israel's healthcare workforce is Palestinians, Palestinian citizens of Israel. And imagine the influx of so much talent workforce in many other areas too, not just labor. You have Palestinians who are leaders in Israeli academy, many professors. They lead scientific development inside of Israel. So instead of viewing them as a liability, primarily because of their inherited racism and supremacy sense, you should look at people as a blessing, as a potential to do something better. Look at all of the countries in the world. They thrived on immigrants. Every country in the world almost is based on immigration. whether it's in England or the United States or any country. There is no country that has like, oh, this super ultra great race that's been there and done everything magically on their own because they look beautiful. It never happened. But they need to come to that realization. Can they come to this realization after so many years of indoctrination and education? Probably. I mean, we're working towards that. But it's not something that happens, very quickly. Mahmoud, thoughts on Nicaragua taking the UK to court for supporting Israel genocide? I haven't heard that yet, to be fair. But some people are above the law, aren't they? Like, Blair's above the law, isn't he? He's a war criminal. Killed over 1 million Iraqis with Bush, war criminals. And he received knighthood when he came back in Britain. So some people are like above the law. The law is for the poor and the weak, unfortunately. Last question I'll take from Muhammad Abdel Hadi is, do you foresee Jordan or Egypt nullifying its peace treaty? Is there a limit? Egypt and Jordan nullifying. Okay. There's an argument that Egypt already shattered the agreement by their actions. Again, that's Egypt. They don't speak, right? They speak diplomacy and they do things. So, like, there was a leader, Eli Dekel, he's called. He was in a section of the Israeli military intelligence directorate. His name is Eli Dekel. He released an article. I think it was published in Haaretz. I spoke about it previously, of how Egypt breached every line of the Camp David Accords by the level of forces it has in Sinai, by the level of military equipment, tanks, and he was talking about massive tunnels in Sinai that are prepared for a potential Israeli attack. These peace treaties don't mean that these people trust each other or like each other. They both have interests. Nullifying an agreement, so ending a peace treaty with someone, is when it reaches a point of no return. So Israel attacking Egypt potentially, like the Jordanian foreign minister, his name is Ayman al-Safadi. He was once asked, what if Israel wants to expel the Palestinians from the West Bank, which is a plan from Israel? He said that would be a declaration of war. But again, like Jordan, for example, they don't have capability against Israel, really. What can they do, Jordan? Egypt, on the other hand, they do. As a matter of fact, if Israel fears any Arab army, it's Egypt. They were petrified of the Iraqi army previously. That's why they sent Mother America to go on war with Iraq and completely get rid of the Iraqi army. And Iraq was also involved in helping the Syrians in the 1973 war. As a matter of fact, if the Syrians led the Iraqis, the Syrian regime, led the Saddam's regime, help them, they would have captured all of Al-Julan, the Golan. And this would be the last question. Again, thank you very much for joining this live stream. We've been together for 90 minutes almost. Thank you for everyone who participated. I do apologize if I haven't responded to all of your messages. Thank you very much for your good comments. Anyone sending me super thanks and your lovely, beautiful comments. And I will hopefully see you soon in the next video. I'll hopefully prepare another live stream again sometime soon. I was planning to have this live stream as like an open live stream, by the way, where you can ask questions, stuff, but typically, you know, you always have something to talk about. And obviously I had many questions before and many questions here. So I'll let you have a good night or afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. And I'll see you soon in the next video. Take care.